Hey FlossTube, this is Brian. Welcome back. This is my 30-second FlossTube video, and it will be an update of my stitching for the months of May and June 2018. But first of all, I want to welcome you. If you are here for the first time, welcome. I hope that you enjoy the things that I have to share with you. If you are returning, thanks for coming back and spending time with me. As you can see, I'm in a different location. As I mentioned before, I've lost my normal recording studio because all of my kids are home and I was using one of their bedrooms. I'm in my living room. I have my piano back here. And if you're curious, this is a painting that my grandmother painted. That was one of her big goals in life. She always wanted to learn how to paint, and eventually she did take classes. It's oil, and this is the one that is my favorite of the paintings that she made. And I was lucky enough to, when she passed away, my mom and my aunt and my uncle decided that they would give me that painting. It sits in a pride of place. It reminds me of her. And the mountains that she painted in the background remind me of Utah as well. So it's kind of, I just really like that painting. So the past couple of months have been pretty busy. As I mentioned before, we spent about 10 days in Europe. My wife and I actually went there to visit my brother-in-law and his family, who are in Germany right now. And we basically went and visited them, and they just wanted to take us all over the place. So we spent a lot of time in a rental car driving all over Germany and Western Europe. We flew into Frankfurt and then drove down to Munich and spent a couple of days in Munich, went to Salzburg and did the Sound of Music tour. My mother-in-law was with us, and that was what she wanted to do. So we did the Sound of Music tour in Salzburg, which was actually pretty interesting. We went to Neuschwanstein, which is the famous castle. That was really fun. We went to Switzerland and visited the town where my great-grandfather was born, and that was a real treat. That was probably my favorite part of the trip. We went to Cologne. We also went to Luxembourg and the Netherlands and Belgium. We spent a day in Amsterdam, and my wife and I went to the Rijksmuseum, which was another real treat to get to see a lot of paintings by Van Gogh and Rembrandt. They have a lot of paintings by Rembrandt and a lot of other great artists. It was really, we didn't spend a lot of time there, but we kind of hit some of the highlights. On our way back, Ingeborg, we actually drove through Arnhem. Well, on the freeway, we didn't get off, but I thought about you when we drove through Arnhem, and of course at the time you were in New Jersey. So. But we had a great time, and it was one of those vacations where you spend so much time going everywhere that it kind of felt good to get home so you could actually rest. But we saw a lot of great things. We went to a lot of cathedrals, and I've been to Germany before when I was in high school, and we went into a lot of churches then. But I didn't really appreciate them as much as I do now. Just looking at some of the big size, at how huge they are, it just amazes me it makes me wonder how they were able to build such big, huge buildings back in the 1300s and 1400s. I was just amazed by how big and by the architecture. It was really a great experience. We also ended up going on a quick trip up north to Salt Lake because one of my good friends from Argentina brought his family to the U.S. and was and he said, if you're going to be in Salt Lake, I'd love to see you. And I hadn't seen him for almost, we've kept in touch with each other over email for several years, but I haven't seen him for almost 30 years. And so we ended up making a quick trip up to Salt Lake to see him. That was a very special experience. And we also ended up with going to my niece's wedding in Boise. So that was another trip with a lot of driving, because Boise is like another 300 miles away from Salt Lake. So we spent a lot of time in the car again. So I'm about tired of driving, of road trips. Anyway, in addition to that, we ended up having to unexpectedly go car shopping, and that took about a lot of time too. So we've had quite the couple months in our house. So that means that I haven't been stitching as much as I have in the past. There were a lot of days. I mean, I took my stitching to Salt Lake, but I didn't feel like stitching, so I didn't. Anyway, before we get into the cross stitch, I guess I'll give you a little bit of an update on my knitting. I haven't done a whole lot, but I have finished and started another square for my Afghan. So I showed this square, and it was on my needles last time. It's finished. It's the cable bladis, which is fun. And then this square is the one that I'm working on right now. It's a 2-color square, and it's called inchworm. It's kind of a strange pattern. I asked one of my sons what he thought it looked like, and he said that it looked like clouds. But these are supposed to be inchworms. It's 2-color. Basically, what you do is you increase a lot of stitches in one stitch, and then you gradually decrease over the next few rows and slip the middle stitch to pull it up into the knitting. So it's kind of cool looking. It's kind of a pain to knit, and you'll see I have kind of stalled out on it. But I guess I need to pull that out and knit a little bit more on it again. Anyway, so I mean, like I say, knitting isn't that much of a priority for me. I just do it when I feel like it, and I'd rather cross stitch than knit. So that's the way it goes. Okay, let's talk about what I've been doing cross-stitch wise. So first of all, I'll show you my graphs. My first graph is my stitching trend, and you'll see for the months of May and June, the number of days that I actually stitched is really quite low. It's a record low, it looks like, and that is because, of course, I've been traveling. In spite of that, it looks like the number of stitches that I put in wasn't too bad. I mean, I have done quite a bit. It's just not as much as I have in the past. And here's something else that I'm going to talk about. Here's my whip trend, and you'll see that, yeah, I've been starting things too. And I'm going to talk a little bit about why that is a little bit later. But I'm up to 10 whips now, and yeah, I guess that's just the way it goes. I've really kind of battled with startitis a little bit recently. And since we're in July, we're halfway through the year, this is kind of a summary of what I've done this year, what I've stitched on. You'll see that I have stitched on, hold on just a minute, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 9, 10 pieces so far. And the one that I've spent the most time on is Winter Sampler. That's because I worked exclusively on that for like almost 2 months to get it finished. And anyway, so everything else is kind of kind of about the same amount on everything. And then here's the number of stitches that I've put in each of those projects. Let Freedom Ring is the winner here, and that's because it has a lot of empty space. So I'm actually pretty happy with where I am at this time this year. Because of I don't think that I'm going to set any records this year as far as number of days that I've stitched, or even number of finishes I have, because it doesn't feel like I'm going to have a lot of finishes in these last 6 months. Of course, that could change, but that's kind of the way things are. So let's talk about what I actually did. The first thing that I worked on, I decided to have a new start, and I decided I was going to stitch the Hometown Holiday series. I decided it was time to pull that out. So, and I decided to start with the first one, which is My House. As you know, this is a design by Little House Needleworks, and I am stitching it on 30 count Northern Cross natural linen, which is the fabric that the pattern calls for. And this is how much I got done. As you can see, it's not a whole lot, and I got working on this, and I wasn't really enjoying it. I don't know. I think my size snobbery came into play, and it just felt like it was a bit of a distraction from other things that I would have rather stitched. So I set it down after 2 days. I'll probably pick it up again. I think what I need to do is consider all of the pieces as one project, and that'll get me past that's a size snobbery. Anyway, so that's the first thing I did. And then the next thing that I worked on is 4 Seasons. It's the Modern Folk Embroidery stitch along. I am stitching this on 35 count Classic Homespun, and the floss that I am using is Silks4U. I've forgotten the number. I'll put the number down here, but it's a pretty blue, and this one is really fun to work on. I worked on this for a few days, and this is what it looks like now. And as you can see, this is January, comes right down through here. So I finished January, and I'm working on February. I really like how this is turning out, and yeah, I'm way behind. I think I'm going to be way behind all the time. I don't have any plans to concentrate on this to get caught up with the stitch along, but I'm really enjoying it so far. Looking forward to actually getting over here and starting on the next block. So yeah, that's this is just really fun to work on, and I really like how the colors are turning out. I don't know if it shows up on the camera very well, but there's some nice tonal variegation showing up in that. The next piece that I worked on, and I'm working on this right now, is Let Freedom Ring by Lila's Studio. And I'll insert a picture of what it looked like the last time you saw it. I'm stitching this on 32 count Cream Belfast linen, and yeah, this has kind of become my focus piece because I want to get it finished. It's like one of my oldest whips now, which is kind of hard to believe, but this is what it looks like now. So yay, big celebration. I finished the building, I guess over here. I finished the building and the trees up above it. So yeah, and I thought, oh, this stuff up here will go really fast because it's not as big as the building. But then I've decided it's not going to go fast. It'll go faster than the building, but I finished the building and I'm only halfway done. I still have all of this up here to stitch. So it's still going to take a while. So I've stitched this flower here, and then I started, this time that I last started working on it, I've stitched this and I'm starting to work on the text. And that is taking me a long time. Last night as I was working on it, I forgot how to spell independence and had to rip out some 3 or 4 letters, which this is stitched over one. That was not a very fun thing to do, to rip it out. It was really quite discouraging, and I was tempted to just like give up. But no, I got it. I got everything ripped out, and I've got Independence Hall, and now I'm working on Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. So anyway, it looks really good, and I'm looking forward to working on it some more the rest of this week, hoping to finish this and do the steeple. I don't know, this is taking me so long. I'd hope to do both sides, but I'm not sure that I'll be able to now. But anyway, that's how it looks so far. I've got a question though. One thing I don't mind stitching over one. What I do mind is securing the ends of my threads. I have a hard time with that over one, especially on something that's where the count is higher than about 28 count. I just have a terrible time. So I'm curious, those of you who are big over one stitchers on really high count fabric, how do you secure your ends? Because for me, I generally run my needle back behind the stitches, and with the higher counts, there's not a lot of place to run your thread behind, and I have a hard time even getting my needle underneath the backs of the stitches. So what do you guys do? I'm curious, because I see people stitching on smaller counts, over one on smaller counts than 32, and I just always wonder, how do you secure your threads? So if any of you have any tricks that would make that easier, I would really appreciate it. Okay, the next thing that I worked on is English Garden Sampler by Teresa Wentzler. This is really, well, I don't know if I call it fun. It's a lot of work, but the rewards are great. I really like how it's turning out. So I'll insert a picture of what it looked like the last time you saw it. And I am stitching this on, I think it's like 25 count even weave. I guess it's Lugana, okay, because it has the stripe in the selvage. And this is what it looks like now. Oh, and I am stitching with Sullivan's floss. This is not DMC, this is Sullivan's. And basically I did one more diagonal, and it's not really obvious, but that is the beginning of a peacock's tail. There's empty stitches in here because those are either beads or metallic blends, which I am saving for later. The way I stitch metallics, I can't park with metallic thread, so I'm going to save that for later. But yeah, so we're starting to see the fountain, the edge of the fountain, and the water coming out of the fountain. More trees over here. I am actually really close to this corner, which is exciting. But yeah, I really like how this is turning out. So, I mean, just looking at that makes me want to stitch it, work on it again. Okay, and then the next thing that I decided to work on is Quaker Christmas II, and that's this one. There are a couple of other people working on this. Donna, a half stitch cross stitch, is working on this, and she's much further along than I am. I started this right around Christmas, and as I was stitching it, I had Christmas carols running through my head the entire time, and I thought, oh, I can't be stitching this in July and have Christmas carols running through my head. That'd drive me crazy. Not that I don't like Christmas carols, they just don't like Christmas carols in July. But anyway, I decided I needed to pull it out because it was really feeling neglected. It had been left alone for a long time. And I found that I was able to stitch it without having Christmas carols run through my head. So that was good. So I'm going to insert a picture of what it looked like the last time you saw it. I'm stitching this on 32 count Ivory Lugana. And I'm stitching it with the called for threads, which are it's Gentle Arts Currant and Blue Spruce. And I just really like these colors. This is what it looks like now. The red is really deep. I really like this red. And the green is a nice accent. So basically I stitched over here. I stitched this motif and this Christmas tree. These almost look like snowflakes to me. Oh, and then here's Frosty the Snowman, I think. So I stitched all this over here. And, oh yeah, and I think I also stitched Hark over here as well. So yeah, so I'm basically, this is the bottom row of pages, and now I'm working on basically working on the next row. And I'm going to work back across this way the next time I pull this out. So yeah. Okay. And then I decided I needed to have a new start. And I'm going to talk about why I've had startitis, because I finally figured it out. But I decided I'm going to finish my ducks. I decided it's time to get the fourth duck done. So I am stitching, this duck right here, which is a green-winged teal. As you know, this is a series of 4 ducks that were published in the November 1994 and January 1995 issues of For the Love of Cross Stitch. And I've stitched 3. I have 1 left to stitch. And I worked on this last week and got quite a ways into it. So so this is what it looks like so far. And I don't know, this green down here, it's really dark. I don't know how that's going to show up on camera, but my Instagram photos, it's looked really dark. So, but yeah, so I've got a lot of the cloth done. I'm hitting more of the shadow underneath the shelf over here, and the duck has also started to appear. So I'm about 60% finished. So the next time I pull this out, I should be able to finish it easily. And I'm excited to have these ducks finished. It'll be good to have them all 4 finished, and I've got an idea of what I'm going to do to finish them. So that's exciting. So that's all that I've done in the past 2 months, and it's been, like I say, I haven't stitched a whole lot, well, I haven't stitched as much as I normally would, but I'm happy with my progress. So I want to talk a little bit about my plans. And I've decided, about 3 or 4 months ago, I decided I was going to throw out my rotation and just stitch on what I wanted to stitch. And over the past month or so, I've realized why I don't do that. And I've decided I need to have the structure of a fixed rotation. And part of the reason for that is when I have to decide what I'm going to stitch, I don't want to stitch anything, because I don't know, it feels like, oh, I just barely stitched that, and it's like I get decision fatigue, and then I just don't want to stitch anything, and then I get startitis. It's like I need to start something because all of my projects are stupid and I don't want to work on anything, and so then I get a great big case of startitis, which isn't really good either. And so I've decided that I just need to have make all of my decisions as to what I'm going to stitch beforehand, and then just go through my rotation. And it's not that I don't enjoy stitching the things I'm stitching. It's just there's like a hump that I have to get over with. Once I actually start stitching, I enjoy them. But there's this, if I have to decide what I'm going to stitch, if I get to the end of the week and say, okay, what am I going to stitch now? Then there's this resistance. Whereas if I say, okay, I've got my rotation and I'm finishing this up and I'm going to work on this next, there's no resistance. And it's easy to pick stuff up, and I start really enjoying my pieces again. That might sound a little bit strange to everybody else, but that's just the way I have to be. So my rotation is back in place. And I started the green teal just to kind of put my startitis at bay a little bit, and then I'm just gonna start rotating. And I also think that I am going to, when I get to the end of my rotation, I'm going to start something. My rotation is big enough right now that that's going to happen sometime in the middle of August, I think. But that's kind of what I'm going to do. I'm going to go back to rotating through everything, at the end starting something, and we'll see how that goes. So, having said that, I've put my rotation back in place. The first piece of my rotation was green teal. And so this next month, this is what I'm going to work on. So Let Freedom Ring is what I'm working on now. Just again, this is going to be my focus piece. So I plan on working on this 1 week a month until it's finished. And then I'm going to rotate through my other projects. And the thinking behind that is once I finish this, then I'll come up with another focus piece, just so that I can feel like I'm getting closer to getting a finish. And so that's what I'm working on now. The next piece that I work on after that is going to be Four Seasons, my modern folk embroidery piece. And then I'm going to work on English Garden Sampler. And then I'm going to work on The Spirit of Christmas, which is this by Lavender and Lace. Those are the pieces that I decided that I was going to work on this month. Next month, the beginning of August, I'll pull out Let Freedom Ring again, and then work on 3 other pieces. And also, as part of that, as part of putting my rotation in place, I've had several people comment that they miss seeing my Autumn Magic, my Heaven and Earth Designs piece. I've decided that it's going to come out again. So sometime during my rotation, I don't have it here with me when, I decided when, but I'm going to pull out Autumn Magic and start working on Autumn Magic again. So if you've been missing that, I've decided it's time. So hopefully I'll be able to get over what happened to me last time I worked on that piece and be able to get it going again. Anyway, so that's what my plans are, and I hope that you will continue to follow along with me as I work through my rotation and see if this helps me a little bit. As always, you can follow my progress on Instagram. I post daily updates of what I've been able to accomplish. And as always, thank you so much for liking and commenting and subscribing to my videos. I always enjoy hearing your comments, and if there's any suggestions that you have for me or any questions that you have, feel free to leave them in the comments below, and I will answer those questions. Thank you so much for spending time with me. I hope that you have a great July and that everything goes well with you. And as always, thanks, and we will talk to you later. Goodbye.